worked with Jeff Bezos. Was he like a demanding manager? What kind of manager was he?
But at the end of the meeting, he turns this close to me. He turns and he has three things at least he could say.
Yeah.
The first thing he could legitimately say is, Ethan, what the hell are you doing here? You should be cleaning up your problems.
Right.
The second thing he could have said, less hostile, but still completely within his rights, is, okay, so I see you're here. What's the status? Like, give me an update.
Right.
He chose option three. His exact words were,
The people you have hired, what are some of the top qualities that they demonstrate?
they're personable. Mm-hmm. They lean in and they show enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. There's a thought in interviewing that the number 1 and 2 factors, according to some people, are appearance and enthusiasm.
Right.
Now, appearance doesn't mean you need to be beautiful or handsome. It means you need to look professional, and this is the wrong time, unless it's very important to you, it's the wrong time to, wear your rebel t-shirt and all that, right?
Yeah.
Just because, again, you're trying to show that company that you value them and you value their mission. Like, Werner, if you ever see this or hear about it or somebody forwards it to you, thank you. You probably don't even remember this. I probably still have your email somewhere. You saved my bacon because it turned the heat off.
Welcome everyone. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Raj. I'm currently a principal solutions architect at AWS, where I've designed multiple world-scale critical applications. I have presented my work at conferences all over the world and mentored many to get into top companies. But enough about me. The person sitting with me is Ethan Evans. Ethan is a former VP at Amazon, where he started multiple billion-dollar businesses such as Prime Video, Prime Gaming, Twitch Commerce, and more. He has also taken over 2,500 interviews, helped create one of the Amazon leadership principles, has over 70 patents, and helped many executives in their careers. Ethan worked with Jeff Bezos directly while at Amazon, which we will talk about, and he also interviewed with Elon Musk. 2 things about Ethan. Ethan always has answers to tough questions on the spot. And secondly, he always has a blurry background in all his videos, which made me suspicious if he is AI generated. Now, somehow miraculously, I'm humbled to interview him in my home studio and call him a friend. And I can say that he is no AI, but a very smart, humble, and warm man with lots of wisdom. I'm very excited to learn and share some of his wisdom in this interview. Welcome, Ethan.
Wow, thank you so much, Raj. Whenever someone like you does such a gracious introduction, I end up thinking I really want to meet that guy. And it's hard for me to accept that you might be talking about me, so thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be here to meet your lovely family and to see your home and to have a chance to stop by and talk to you. So I'm excited. As you say, I do always have an answer to a question.
Right.
So I'm excited to hear what you'd like to talk about today.
Excellent. So for today's talk, Ethan, I thought we'll go the life cycle of a person, like getting into a job, going through some challenges, and thriving there.
Okay.
But first, I want to start with you, Ethan. Ethan, you grew up on a farm. So how did you end up from a farm to big tech?
Yeah, so I did grow up on a farm. I grew up in a farm in Southwest Ohio near Cincinnati, and but I had highly educated parents. My father had a PhD in chemistry, and my mother had a master's degree in chemistry. And so it was always assumed I'd go to college. But along the way, the computer revolution began. And I got my first computer, an Apple II Plus, when I was between 8th and 9th grade.
Sure.
And I taught myself to program. I learned BASIC, I learned machine language, I programmed through high school. And then I did something really unusual, I think. I actually wrote Apple Computer a letter. This is pre-email days. So I wrote them a longhand letter that said, when I graduate, I really want to work at Apple. Where should I go to school and what should I study? And I still have a handwritten letter that I got back from an Apple engineer.
Wow.
True to form for Apple, the ink on the letter is like a very nice shade of sky blue. Wow. It's not navy blue, it's not dark, it's this, so even then Apple's image and design was high.
Yes.
But the letter said, We only hire from 5 universities. Apple was much smaller then. Caltech, Stanford, Berkeley. I'm in Ohio. Those sounded far away. MIT and Carnegie Mellon. I was admitted to Carnegie Mellon, not MIT. The rest is kind of history. I went to Carnegie Mellon, did my master's degree at Purdue, was working on a PhD when I decided to leave for industry. So that's kind of how I got into engineering, was I followed Apple's instructions.
Right. Did you ever make it to Apple?
I did not. I did not. I coach people at Apple today. One of my favorite coaching clients is at Apple. You know, and it just never quite lined up. I did all sorts of other interesting things.
Yeah.
You know, and I still have an iPhone in my pocket. So
Yeah.
I'm a fan. It's funny, I have an iPhone in my pocket even though I built Amazon's Android App Store.
Right, right. Well, last time we talked, you said if there is something big, you may come back from your retirement, such as a rocket to the Mars with your name, right? Maybe the next Apple device. So Tim Cook, if you are listening, you know who to call.
Yeah, well, it was, Apple is a fascinating company. They're very unique. Tim Cook's done an amazing job. I mean,
I think so too.
one of the hardest things I can imagine on earth
Yeah.
is being second on stage after Steve Jobs.
Yes.
Like, everyone thought Tim Cook was going to look somewhere between amazingly incompetent and just average. But he's done much, like,
Yeah,
you know, he's a worthy successor. It's quite impressive.
I think so too. So with that, you did get into big tech.
I did.
So Ethan, how can someone get into big tech? Like, what can they do to make sure their resume get picked or they succeed in the interview?
Okay. Well, so to answer that fully, somewhere buried in my YouTube is a how to get into Amazon video.
Okay, we'll link to that.
So yeah, you can link to it. We can dig it up. I did it a few years ago. But the first thing to understand is 80% of jobs are not posted publicly. And 80% of jobs that are filled by someone are filled by someone with a networking connection.
Right.
So even though people in technology hate to hear be social and network,
Right.
the best way to get your resume picked is to be have it handed to the hiring manager. Go around all the recruiting. As soon as you are applying through a portal, you're really accepting that you're buying a lottery ticket as compared to engineering the process. Now, I also have done a lot of classes on resumes. Very briefly, you mentioned the 2,500 interviews.
Right.
I think in my life I've looked at over 10,000 resumes to get down to 2,500 interviews. Resumes have 3 classic flaws. Number one, they don't say what people want to do. People put this fuzzy stuff at the top that I call happy talk.
Yeah.
Happy talk is the I am a highly motivated, fast learner, blah, blah. It's you praising yourself in generic terms with no data. And in the Amazon terms, there's no data. You're just saying nice things about yourself. Well, I just skim right past that. So it's useless. By comparison, what is useful is saying this is the type of job I want. Now you can change that for every place you submit it.
Right.
But here's the thing, if I'm a hiring manager and I have some resumes that don't say anything about what the person wants to do, and some that say I'm seeking a role as a solutions architect,
Right.
I immediately sort and say, well, these people want this job. These people, I don't know, maybe they don't even want the job.
Right.
So why bother? Because I have lots of resumes.
Yeah.
Second thing, much too many words. People get into the idea, particularly women fall for this, but it happens for everyone. They feel like if only you knew everything I've done, of course you'd pick me.
Right.
So they write and write and write and write.
Yep.
The problem is a resume will never get you a job. It gets you an interview.
Right.
And so you only need enough data on it to get them to call you. And if you bury it with all this stuff, I literally look at it, I'm like, ugh. And I just move on to the one I can skim quickly.
Right.
Third thing, and most important, get to results. You, of course, have been trained in Amazon STAR tactics.
Yes.
So at Amazon, when we interview, we interview using a process called STAR, which is situation, task, or action, response, or result. People often talk about their situation. I work at Acme Inc.
Right.
They talk about their task. I was working on a project to build a widget, whatever, build a service. They talk about the action they took. I wrote a bunch of code. What they don't talk about is did it ship, and did anyone care? Was it adopted? Here's the thing. If you only talk about the first 3, makes you a worker. It says what work you can do. So for entry-level people, that's great. But I know that your audience, a lot of the people you're talking to are more advanced in their career. They're looking to become a staff or principal engineer, an L7 or up in our language. There, I care about, did it have a business result?
Right.
Did you lock down that big government customer? I know you mentioned to me that you serve public sector customers. Did what you do lock in the Department of Defense? Did you win the Department of the Navy? Now I'm interested. If you can say, I did this, this, and this, and we closed the contract with the Department of the Navy for 5 years for $60 million. Now I'm like, this guy, Raj, makes the rain fall. I want to hire him.
Right.
That's what I want. If you just say, oh yes, I represented Amazon with the Department of the Navy, it's true you did that, but why?
But what's the outcome?
Who cares? What's the outcome? So get to results. So just reviewing objective, brevity, results. Those are the 3 resume things. That's how you stand out.
Okay, and talking about the resume, do you still think the modern companies go by resume or they put more effort in the LinkedIn?
I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, and I think it's underrated because I think even 4 years ago when I was still at Amazon, often what would be circulated to me internally was not the client's resume, the candidate's resume, but a snapshot of their LinkedIn.
Right.
That's where people can find you passively too. So you're not necessarily looking for a job, but if you have a strong LinkedIn, people will call you.
Right.
So I think LinkedIn is very important. That said, here's why the resume matters. Well, first, let's have some trivia.
Yeah.
Who is credited in history for writing the first resume? If you look in all of history, who is thought to have written the first resume ever?
Probably some politician.
No?
I'm not sure.
Leonardo da Vinci.
All right.
Leonardo da Vinci wrote a letter to a duke, and he's the first person at least recorded to itemize his past accomplishments while asking for a job, the definition of a resume. So the thing is, resumes haven't changed that much since Leonardo wrote his letter. But here's why they matter. They matter for the candidate's confidence. Candidates want to feel that they have this great piece of paper that showcases them effectively. I think your resume matters half for the person who will read it and half because you feel that it represents you well, and that confidence comes through. Because if you go to interview and you're like, I'm so honored to talk to you. Nobody wants, when you come to me and you're like, oh, I'm so honored to talk to you about the chance to join Amazon. I'm so excited. What I'm thinking is, if you're that excited, you're not that good. Because if you're that good, you'd be talking to Google and Meta, and right?
Yeah.
And so, of course, I want you to want to work at Amazon.
Right.
But if you're like over the top about you're getting a chance to talk to me, I'm actually like, maybe I've undershot.
Right.
Because you're probably not that good. And it may be that you're that good, but you don't sound that good, and I move on because I have to filter quickly and I don't want to make a mistake.
Right. No, makes sense. So you have taken over 2,500 interviews, Ethan.
I have.
So I'm going to ask you, what are the top 3 things that candidates should not do?
Good. You've hit me with a question I don't have a prepared answer for, which is great.
Okay.
Number one, it's okay to ask questions and to push about why should I choose your company, but don't come in with a chip on your shoulder. I have had people come in who are like, why should I come to Amazon? I hear you guys are a sweatshop.
Yeah.
Even if you believe that, throwing mud in the face of the interviewer is never a win. So don't do that. Second thing is, don't try to control the interview. Let the other person drive. You can insert yourself, you can ask questions, but there is an established power dynamic, whether there should be or not. I am the interviewer, you are the candidate. Respect that, because again, this isn't the place to plant your rebel flag.
Right.
You can do that later. Third thing is fully answer the question. And there is a secret, this is your secret tip for this segment.
All right.
After you answer a question, ask the interviewer, if you have any doubt, ask the interviewer, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Why? Do you know why? You say yes.
Because sometimes as an interviewer, when I take an interview, I wanted the candidate to hit on some things, but then when the candidate asks me that, I can help them a little bit. I'm like, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about the nuances of the scalability.
Right.
Yeah.
So that question is magic because both answers are a win for you. if you say yes, yes, you fully answered my question. Cognitively, you're confirming as the interviewer that you liked my answer. It actually is biasing you to vote for me because you've just, if you're going to vote against me, you can't say yes.
Right.
Second, if it didn't answer your question, I get another chance. But if I don't ask that question, you just move on to your next question and mark an X, and like there's 10 questions or whatever, and like that one gets an X, the person's not good enough.
Right.
So that's your secret tip is if you have any doubt that you nailed it, ask. And second tip, you can change the phrasing so it doesn't sound like you're repeating yourself. One time you say, did I fully answer your question? The next time, if you need to use it again, you say, is there anything more you wanted to hear about that? The next time you say, I'm not sure I covered everything you might have meant. You had multiple parts. Was there anything I didn't cover? And that way it doesn't sound like you're just a program. It's like, did I answer that? Did I answer that? Did I answer? Because again, interviewing is part how well you answer and part how much you project like you belong there.
Right.
And how calm you feel. Because if I look and feel nervous, it's going to make you nervous. If I look and feel like, yeah, let's chat.
Yeah.
It's all about relationship.
Right. Right.
Lots of candidates, particularly lots of engineers, want to believe it's about how much they know and how smart they are.
Yeah.
That's part of it, but it's also, do I want to work with you?
Yes.
And part of that, by the way, is subconscious. I may not be saying, do I want to work with you? But my hindbrain is saying, are you part of my tribe? Do I want to sit next to you? Am I going to enjoy working with you?
Right.
And my brain, remember, humans are incredible rationalization machines. I can always construct a rational reason to vote no, even if what's really going on is, I didn't like that dude.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. So on that note, Ethan, a couple more things. The people you have hired, what are some of the top qualities that they demonstrate?
In the interview or in work performance?
In the interview.
In the interview. They're personable. They lean in and they show enthusiasm. There's a thought in interviewing that the number 1 and 2 factors, according to some people, are appearance and enthusiasm.
Right.
Now, appearance doesn't mean you need to be beautiful
Yeah.
or handsome. It means you need to look professional, and this is the wrong time, unless it's very important to you, it's the wrong time to, wear your rebel t-shirt and all that, right?
Yeah.
Just because, again, you're trying to show that company that you value them and you value their mission.
Right.
So the other thing good candidates do is, of course, they answer well on the fly and they can adapt and they're good conversation partners, but they also make sure not just to answer questions, but to talk about the company's mission.
Right.
Because here's the weird thing. You want a job. I don't actually want an employee. What I want is someone who's going to solve the problems we face and advance the business. So if you speak in terms of how you're going to contribute to the business, it's putting you in the terminology of what I'm interested in. If you speak in terms of, well, am I going to get to do this in the job and that in the job, and will I be developed in this way, then you're making it about you,
Right.
and you're much more likely to get the job if you make it about the contribution you'll deliver.
Right.
Now, it's totally okay to say, well, what development opportunities will there be in your team? It's a legitimate question. But the way you say that is you say, I'm really excited about the AWS mission in the East Coast region to contribute to our growth in the government sector. But I am wondering, I would love to develop with Amazon and AWS as it grows, what opportunities will there be? That's how you ask that question in a way like, oh, I'm excited to tell you. Whereas if I ask it as like, well, what development opportunities are there?
Yeah.
It's just not nearly...
I love the reframe.
Right? It's just, and reframing is so much of the difference.
Yes.
I haven't had to test it in a while, but my goal when interviewing was even if I concluded partway through the interview, I don't want to work with this company, I still wanted the offer. Because I wanted to know that I could get the offer. Because if I can get the offer from somebody I don't want, then tomorrow I can get the offer from someone I do.
100%. No, I love that. And side topic, like power of reframing is very impactful. So you can change how you see a situation if you can reframe it, right? When you are going through hardship and stuff, If you reframe it as, oh, I'm going through it and I'm going to conquer it and it's going to make me better, it gives you motivation to keep going.
Yeah, and let me give everybody an example of how the same issue, if I frame it two different ways, you feel differently about the exact same issue.
Yeah.
You own a home here, Raj, and you also have a child.
Right.
If I say to you, Raj, I need you to vote no on issue 1, they're going to raise your taxes on your home, and you don't want to pay more taxes, do you? You're like, no, I'm against taxes. I'm against issue 1.
I'm in New Jersey. Listen, I'm paying enough taxes.
Right. So I've got you on board that you're against issue 1.
Right.
If on the other hand, I frame it and say, issue 1, Raj, is super important. All the revenue from issue 1 is going to go to schools, and we really need to invest in our children. Now you're like, damn straight. I'm 100% with you.
Right.
I just changed the framing from, is it about raising taxes or is it about investing in our children's future? It's the same bill.
Right.
It's just, and this is, everyone can learn to do this. You just play with it. If you want to be, some of the people listening are like, okay, great, Ethan, you're a former executive, and Raj, you're you work in a sales related function. You two are good at talking.
Yeah.
I don't have that gift for gab. Well, I was trained as an engineer. You can develop it. You just need to practice thinking about the situations and say, how could I reframe this? If I had to argue the other side, how would I do it?
Yeah.
If I had to make the case I don't agree with, how would I do it?
Yeah. No, on that note, I do have to ask, like, you are an amazing communicator, right? Like, we are sitting and you are fast and you speak very sharply and succinctly. Any tips for other folks to develop it, Ethan? Well, I'm just special,
That's right. None of you just worship what you see. You can never know. So there's a few tips.
Yeah.
You have to put effort into it. You have to care.
Yeah.
Second, a great tip is watch other communicators in meetings or in your work and study two things. If their communication isn't working for you, ask why. Study, what is that person doing that's not working for me? They look nervous, they're stuttering, they don't have a command of their details. And then whatever it is, don't do that.
Right.
Conversely, when you see someone who's really you feel is like, oh, that person is influential, try to figure out why. What are they doing?
Yeah.
So, and then there are endless tricks to this, making eye contact, using body language, all of which can be studied. The great thing for an engineer is it can all be studied.
It's an algorithm at the end of the day.
It is an algorithm at the end of the day. We have biology that can be programmed.
Right.
And if you want a programming manual that kind of breaks it down by an API level, check out the book Executive Presence by Harrison Monarth.
Okay.
He literally goes skill by skill. And you may think, well, I'm not an executive, but everyone needs a type of executive
100%.
presence, influence skills. And he breaks down all the different components and how to practice them individually. Because how you speak is different than what you say, is different than how you inflect or what gestures you use, is different than your dress and your body carriage. There's all sorts of these things matter. And you can tune each of them, and together they make a package.
No, I love it. And also, I think it's important, not every style gonna work for everyone.
Correct.
Right? So you have to adapt based on your strengths and weaknesses. Like, obviously, English is not my first language, so I gave up on talking in fewer words. So when I talk to my customers, I know my strengths, so I always explain a little bit more. Like, if you talk to Southeast Asian folks, they tend to write longer sentences because our literature is very wordy. Like the state I am from in India, we have a Nobel laureate, Rabindranath Tagore, right? I have adapted to it. So whatever works, as long as you practice and you have some techniques, I think that's the way.
You're cracking me up because I'm reminded of a story. A friend of mine took his family back to India. His son had been raised here in the United States, but he went to live in India for a couple of years. He wanted to send his son to local school. The school tested him because good schools in India have admissions. They asked him, among other questions, can you write in Hindi? And he said, oh, yes, I can. They said, great, show us. He wrote in English, drew a line across the top and said, there, it's Hindi.
Okay.
So yes, you can learn to communicate in many different ways. And you're right, not every style will work for every person. I know a woman, she was a leader at Amazon. I, of course, am big, and you and I both speak loudly. We talked about that when we were testing our microphones.
Yes.
Well, she's not a loud person to begin with, but her trick, if people were talking over her, was just to lower her voice.
That makes other people
to speak more softly.
Yeah.
And in fact, you learned with her, if she was speaking softly, she was probably upset. And so it was a cue like, she's lowered her voice. She's speaking very softly. What did I do wrong? Like you look very quick. But different techniques for different people.
Love it. And you worked with Jeff Bezos. Was he like a demanding manager? What kind of manager was he?
Jeff had some. Well, look, Jeff, while I contributed to one leadership principle, Jeff ultimately edited and wrote them all.
Yeah.
And he's the one who wrote that we have relentlessly high standards that are so high that many people will consider them unreasonable. So he had no problem pushing. And in fact, he's famous. I wasn't in this meeting, but it's well documented. There was a meeting where he was disappointed with the team in the room. And he felt their document and their plans were not up to stuff. And he stopped the meeting, looked at the room, and said, "Is the A team for this project available? Because it seems like the B team is in the room."
Wow.
and like that's Jeff at his harshest, where he just told a room full of people who were like, your shit is just not good enough. It's not good. Come back when you want to be the A team, but till then, get out. I did see him rip into one person in a meeting pretty hard, but generally, if he saw that you were smart and working hard, he was very reasonable. Now, I did have him mad at me for sure. I did have him mad at me personally by name.
Personally by name?
Oh yeah, he was flaming me in email with like half the S team copied, and I was a director, not a VP.
Okay.
So he was going right through my management chain and just like, how could you? And it was a grim day.
Okay. What happened? I have to ask now.
So it was launch of the Amazon App Store.
Yeah.
And there was a feature he really cared about.
Yeah.
And back then he used to do something called a Jeff letter, where he would take over the homepage of Amazon and put up a letter introducing a feature.
Okay.
So we had this letter all ready to go. Well, my team tried to, this would be a good story because AWS is the hero. So you're really going to like this because it's really the AWS principal engineers came to the rescue. So now I've given away the end in a way, part of it.
But I can edit it out.
No, it's actually good.
Okay.
It's called foreshadowing.
Okay.
Because now everybody has to know, like, how did AWS save the day? But we're supposed to launch this feature. Mistake number one I made is we were trying to hit a marketing date, and we wanted to get the feature live right before the opening of the stock market so we could put out the press release before 9 a.m. East Coast time, which meant 6 a.m. in Seattle. So my team's working all night launching it. This turns out to be a bad mistake because it meant that when we had problems, the whole team had been without sleep.
Right.
So it was an error. But we're trying to hit this date, and it comes to morning.
Yeah.
The store is launched, but this one feature is flaky and won't work. And I can't get it stabilized. Jeff wakes up, sees the letter isn't up, because the letter talks about the feature.
Yeah.
And says, "What's going on? The letter's not up." And I write him back, 6 a.m., the rest of the management chain isn't awake yet. I write him back and say, "We have a few problems, we're working on them." And what I'm thinking to myself is, please get in the shower. Like, you probably take a shower in the morning or you work out. Please get on the treadmill, whatever it is. Give me, because of course, as engineers, you know this, we always believe that we're just that close.
100%.
Like, it's just,
turns
out we weren't that close. More foreshadowing. But I'm like, we're just that close. Wow. Jeff writes me back like 33 seconds later and says, "What problems?" And now he's like gonna start digging. And then Jeff Wilkie wakes up and it goes south. Well, here are the problems. Since technical audience, I can explain.
Yeah.
Bottom line, we had built this really complicated technology. It worked fine. And then when we hooked it up, we made two mistakes. Number one, we had a decision whether or not to show the button based on whether or not we had server capacity. But to do that, the engineer who was a level 4 entry engineer had put a database call in line with web page display. No caching.
Wow, how many calls were that making?
Well, it's going to be on the Amazon homepage, so,
Right.
you know.
Millions.
Millions.
Yeah.
So clearly it wasn't going to work. The second thing, a level deeper, is we were doing a linear probe of a database table to figure out what servers were available, which causes lock-in contention, because two things probe it, and then they both try and claim this and that, and so we had two flaws. And then the third flaw, which you will know, this is old school, it predates you.
Yeah.
It was on an Oracle database, because Amazon, and Jeff was like, what? What are you doing? Because back then, AWS didn't have Dynamo. It was pre.
Right.
As you may know the history of AWS, they had several bad database solutions before they really got it right.
Yeah.
And we were still using Oracle. Much of Amazon was.
Yeah.
But Jeff hated it.
Yeah.
So he's like, what? There's Oracle? What? So this is going to be a cast of heroes you'll like. Jeff blows up. Wilkie wakes up, CEO of retail, is flaming me. My boss is trying to protect me, my VP. There's a really funny story there. Wilkie shows up in our office later that morning.
Yeah.
He says, where's Ethan? I want to talk to him. My boss, who's a VP, his name's Paul Ryder, he's retired now, steps in front and says, talk to me, Jeff. This is my team. I own 100% responsibility. Wilkie, who's a very good leader, says, Paul, that is excellent leadership. I really appreciate that. You're doing the right thing to own this problem. Please step out of the way. I want to talk to Ethan. Right. And then he reads me the riot act. But what do? This is where it's really funny. We realize we're in trouble. Andy Jassy gets on the thread, emails us and says, hey, we've all been under Jeff's gun. What can we do to help you? Like, we've all been there. What can we do? I said, I need some PEs. I don't have a PE in my team. I didn't even have an SDE3.
Yeah.
Which is why the architect.
Really?
No.
Yeah. L4 is associate for those of you who don't know. So that's like pretty junior.
Yeah. I had only L4s and L5s built this whole product because we lost.
That is incredible by itself. By
it is. But the cost was they didn't have the battle scars and experience to know just because it works in the lab, it's not going to work live.
Right.
So we get a couple of PEs in. This is the funny part about AWS. They take a look at it and say, your database design is terrible. We can't fix it as fast as Jeff wants. Here's what we're going to do instead. We're going to put it on so many big machines that it will scale despite the load. They just go grab like 25 big AWS instances, load it up, and are like, yeah, you have a terrible design with locking problems, but it'll run fine because like we're 10 times over capacity now.
Yeah. Listen, if it makes you feel better, I did the same thing last week with a customer.
Right, because it's a great short-term hack solution, and it does make me feel better.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story, it's interesting though, is yes, the problem gets fixed. Part of recovering your reputation with Jeff is fix it fast.
Right.
Show that you care, fix it fast. But there was a step two. And step two was I had a meeting scheduled with Jeff the next week. Now, in that meeting, I was kind of an optional attendee.
Okay.
But, so I thought to myself, oh, he's so mad. Should I go to this meeting? And then I thought, this is the critical thing, I thought, if I can't face the CEO, I better pack my desk and leave.
Right.
So I go to the meeting. Now, Jeff always sits in the same chair at his meetings. Now it would be Andy, but they have a chair.
Okay.
I went and sat in the chair next to it. I thought, let's find out.
This is it.
So so we're literally sitting like this through the meeting because I'm at the right angle. So we're sitting this close. He conducts the meeting. He doesn't talk to me much because I'm optional. It's about other people. But at the end of the meeting, he turns this close to me. He turns and he has three things at least he could say.
Yeah.
The first thing he could legitimately say is, Ethan, what the hell are you doing here? You should be cleaning up your problems.
Right.
The second thing he could have said, less hostile, but still completely within his rights, is, okay, so I see you're here. What's the status? Like, give me an update.
Right.
He chose option 3. His exact words were, so how are you doing? I guess it's probably been a rough week. Incredibly human. And that's why Jeff has strengths and weaknesses like any leader, but you talk about why I'd come out of retirement.
Right.
If Jeff wanted me to do something for him, I would come out of retirement because of that one statement. He's a decent human being at the core.
Yeah.
So incredibly demanding. He read me the riot act. And by the way, I was up for my VP promotion. Didn't get it, had to wait 2 more years and show that I had learned my lessons and I was operationally reliable. Because I had allowed my team to go forward without sufficient engineering review to let basic mistakes, right? Your technical audience, any experienced engineer knows you can't put a database call of any kind in line with a web page. And you can't have a design that always hits the same rows on a persistent operation. You can't do it.
Yeah.
So that, even if I had reviewed the code, but I was acting as a manager and not reviewing, and I didn't have the process in place. So that was my failing as an engineering leader, and I had to prove that I had learned. But I did all that. I was ultimately promoted. So it's a success story in the end. And fun fact, when I decided to leave Amazon, I wrote Jeff a farewell message. Many of you, I used a Douglas Adams quote.
Thanks for all the fish.
So long and thanks for all the fish. And he wrote me back and said, there's a picture of me with Douglas Adams as a kid. So he wrote me back a nice note. But I shared this story. I said, I really appreciate how you treated me. And he wrote me a very nice farewell note. And again, that's why, no leader is perfect, but I have the utmost respect for Jeff.
Yeah, no, I prefer leaders who are demanding in the right way that allows me to grow, at the same time rewards when I do something good, right?
Yeah.
I think those leaders are easy to work with because they know, they're gonna push you and you're gonna grow and you're gonna deliver something greater, which will be in your body of work. And they will also reward you for it. And
Absolutely. And, I went from L7, so senior manager, to L8 director, to L10 VP. And luckily for me, Amazon was growing at the same time. I worked with Jeff as a 7, which unfortunately no 7s get that chance now to work really with Andy.
No way.
I worked with him as an 8. So fun story. As a 7, I was 3 levels from Jeff. It was Jeff, an SVP, a VP, and me.
Yep.
I became an 8. It was Jeff, an SVP, a VP, and me. I became a 10. It was Jeff, an SVP, a VP, and me. So even though I went up 2 levels, it was the same distance. But I always got to work with him. And of course, I worked with Andy as well. I left out one. I meant to tell you this because you're in AWS.
Yeah.
Jeff was hammering away when that bug was there. He said, I want this fixed today. I want this live. And finally, I have never spoken at any length of Werner Vogels in person, before or after.
CTO,
But CTO of AWS, he had gotten added to the thread somewhere. And he wrote back and he said, Jeff, there is no engineering team that can fix this bug for you today. And it quieted Jeff down. It turned him off. Because Werner had spoken up and said, Jeff, you can't have what you want
today.
And it's not this team. There is no team that can do that for you.
That's very nice of Werner.
Yeah, and that's why I talk about it. Like, Werner, if you ever see this or hear about it or somebody forwards it to you, thank you. You probably don't even remember this. I probably still have your email somewhere. You saved my bacon because it turned the heat off. People enjoy war stories.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell an S3 war story.
Yeah.
One of my engineers on Prime Video, we were ingesting videos from the studio and we were transcoding them into different quality levels.
Yeah.
Very common process.
Now we have a service for that.
Of course.
Yeah.
But we were transcoding them and putting them all. Yeah, you bought Elemental. You have a whole system for it.
Yeah.
But we were putting them all in S3.
Yeah.
One of our engineers made a mistake, put a wildcard character in something, and deleted all of our transcodes out of S3.
Oh my God.
So our whole service immediately crashed. Because what happened is we were using a caching system. CloudFront didn't exist. We were using a third-party CDN. The cache hits, the cache is timed out. They started coming back to S3 as their origin. Nothing there. Service crashes. Starts crashing randomly, though, because the movie will play in this county and not there because which server is timed out. We figure out, oh shit, we wiped out our S3.
Wow.
This is years of encoding.
Yeah.
What do? AWS to the rescue. We call up S3.
Okay.
They turn off garbage collecting
Okay.
across the entire fleet very quickly. They're like, oh, they turn off garbage collecting. As you may know, the S3 architecture may have changed, but the way it was 3 copies of every file
Yes.
in distributed locations.
Still same. Yeah.
Okay. They turn off garbage collecting everywhere, and then they go and recover the copies that haven't been erased.
Wow.
We got back every file but one out of like 1 million files, out of 1 million
That's
transcodes.
incredible.
In many cases, all 3 copies still existed. In some cases, only 2. In some cases, only 1, and in one case, 0. But we got to it quick enough because it takes time for those files, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's a fun, like, deep architecture geek
I
story.
love it. I didn't know that you know this much AWS as well as the tech, because you manage 800 people.
Yeah.
Okay, but good man of good memory.
Well, you don't forget when
Yeah.
you lose 1 million transcodes, and like, but no, I loved it. I also love, you know, again, this is a gross.
Yeah.
Imagine today
Yeah.
trying to make a phone call and
Yeah.
getting S3 to shut down garbage collection globally.
It's very
We're just
tough.
going to turn it off.
It's tough.
But back then,
Yeah.
you know, we're like, what can you do? You know, we're in a panic, and they're like, they just roll their eyes up in their head, and they're like, well, there are probably still copies out there. Let's see what we can recover.
Love it.
We've done, so, yeah, I don't know how many questions you want to ask, but since you like tech stories
I
and
do.
you talk to a tech audience,
Yes.
here's another good one.
Okay.
We had a service, wasn't my service in this case, it was a partner team service. They screwed up, and they had I don't remember the exact circumstances now, but they were a logging service for video games. And they had recorded like 1 billion events
Okay.
over
this
time.
Is outside of AWS.
Outside, but they were using AWS.
Okay.
They were
CloudWatch is our login
well, now they
service.
would be part. AWS actually has a set of video game services.
Yes.
So now if they still existed, they've been subsumed into that. But it was a video game event logging service, and they had billions of events. I forgot what they did, but they lost it all.
Okay.
They had backups. They had never tested restore, which is another classic engineering mistake. If you're going to bother to keep a backup, you have to test.
Test restore. Yeah.
So they couldn't figure out
Now
how
we give it out of the box. You click a button, we restore it.
right?
Yeah.
So-
Probably because of your story.
Well, so in this case, their service is down. By
Yeah.
the time they call me, this is amazing too, their service has been down 2 days.
2 days.
And finally, their VP
Yeah.
is away. He's on the road. He's actually at a conference debuting Kindles. So he's on stage presenting Kindles.
Wow.
So he can't do anything. He calls me and says, Ethan, you got to help this team. They call me, I go to a war room. I hear they've been down 2 days. And I'm like, you have a live service that's been down 2 days? Okay, first, where's the firing squad? Because
Yeah.
somebody like,
There's no like alert manager, no paging.
No, they knew.
Oh, they knew,
They've
okay.
just been keeping it to themselves. I'm like, we're gonna fix it. They didn't call for help soon enough. Well, anyway, long story short, we call in the AWS cavalry again, the principal engineers. They're like, we don't know how to fix your backups, but all of your logged events are still in AWS. We're gonna rebuild your database from scratch by taking, again, a whole fleet of machines, replaying your billion events to your parser. We're
Yeah.
just going to replay the events from raw storage and rebuild all of your data by just
Incredible.
pretending we're just going to compress a year into like a day.
Yeah.
So again, it's the power of AWS to cause miracles by scalability.
Yeah.
They just replayed a year worth of service events in like 12 hours. Like, okay, you've got all your data back. It's all rebuilt.
Wow.
And of course, it is a tricky engineering problem. For the geeks here, you have to fragment it, right? Because
Yeah.
you're going to replay into all these individual databases, and then you have to, into all these individual copies, and then merge all the tables and roll them up. But,
Yeah.
you know, this is just getting up for breakfast for a good database engineer.
Right.
So that's what they did.
Wow.
But we rescued that down service again. As you said, for your customer, dirty secret, how much you can mask by just using the raw power of AWS to overcome whatever got screwed up.
Yeah.
You can't do it all the time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, like, sometimes, Ethan, and you know this, optimization takes time and a lot of effort. And some of these customers, they have money, and they're like, okay, this requires a lot of engineering to this kind of optimization. Let's just go twice the size of this server.
right?
Fine, and now we have reserved instances where you can buy massive amount of server, very powerful, and you get massive discount if you say you're going to use this server for 1 or 3 years.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, good. I love the stories, and I do have to ask. You also interviewed with Elon Musk.
I did.
And I don't know if you did any research. Like, what's the style difference between Elon Musk and Jeff's management?
Jeff is deep in the details. Elon is hands-on.
Hands-on.
So he codes himself, or did. He turns wrenches himself. He's super hands-on. Jeff didn't do anything hands-on. He saw his job as to make the right decisions. Now, he would dive and audit and dig and go very deep and choose leaders and things like that, but he wasn't going to go out on a factory floor.
Right.
Early in Amazon, he used to visit the fulfillment centers and stuff like that, but he quickly realized, like, this is the wrong use of my time for him.
Yes.
Elon would say that's never the wrong use of your time, and that's how the whole founder mode conversation that was hot recently came up.
Yeah.
No, Musk was, I only spoke to him for a little while.
Yeah.
But of course, anybody who's you have to study Musk because he's such a unique individual.
He is.
And I loved my conversation with him. We didn't see eye to eye, which is fine, to the point. I made the point much earlier in this video about who's the right fit for you.
Right.
We were not the right fit for each other. There's a fun story there. I was working for a guy named Mike George, a longtime Amazonian. And I got the call to go be VP of software at SpaceX from a recruiter. And I'm like, this guy his goal is to put a rocket on Mars, people on Mars.
Yes.
This is a chance to actually put my name in the history books. I have to go. But I'm a very honest person. So I went to my boss and I said, look, I want to tell you, I'm going to be out tomorrow. It's not vacation. I've been invited to go interview with Elon Musk. I'm going to go. And he's funniest comment, and you're wondering, like, I've just told my boss, and this guy bled Amazon colors. He bled orange blood.
Yeah.
I'm like, how is this going to go? But I'm not going to lie. He said, oh, you should definitely go talk to him. I interviewed to be COO of Tesla, and I didn't like him. See what you think.
Wow.
So, I'm like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
This guy who is Amazon, like, I had no idea, but I think he thought the same thing. Like, I've got a good job at Amazon. I love Jeff Bezos, but COO of Tesla, I've got to go have the conversation.
100%. Yeah.
And I did. I went and had the conversation. It's another story that will take time.
Yeah, sure.
But, it wasn't a fit. I'm super impressed with Musk. I'm also personally very glad. I'd probably just whack the mic so it'll be a loud pop. It's okay. You people can deal with it. Wake up. Wake up. Now he's like, stop. You're totally screwing my audio. It's okay. I'm doing it on purpose.
I can do post
Nah, leave it there.
Yeah. But SpaceX, if you join, man, SpaceX, once it goes public.
Well, that's the thing, though. This was 10 years ago. So it's a long time to wait.
Long time, yeah.
Now, maybe I should have done that, but it wasn't a fit for me, and I'm happy with what I did.
Yeah.
That said, the guy's amazing. Okay, you can't.
Yeah, no, I like Elon. I wish he toned down some of his political activities.
Of course.
Whether you are left or right, people always say if you're a business, don't get too deep into politics because
You don't have to be. Even if you want to hold views, he just is so intentionally polarizing.
Yes.
I've had that worry. I think he has toned it down some. I think he may go nuts again.
Yeah.
But it was the X acquisition that got him so
deep
wrapped up, and I
Right.
think he's like, now he's got that in a box and he's moved on.
Okay, I hope so.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I mean, he's a polarizing figure, but he's also arguably the greatest engineering leader of our
100%.
time.
Yeah.
Bezos is a great business leader.
Yes.
Steve Jobs, great design leader. You know, I could find something nice to say about Zuckerberg, particularly if he's going to pay me, but otherwise I'll just say amazing company, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, I do like how Zuckerberg is making all the LLM models open source.
yeah.
I think he's doing that. Yeah.
So all leaders do some things well,
Right.
but for just raw, the Musk superpower is fearlessness.
Yeah. Also, he's like super smart. Like how he can focus on 6 different.
So many smart people.
Yeah.
He's like, well, to make this car company work, I'm also going to need to build a global charging network. Okay, put that on the list.
Yeah.
Well, to power all this, we're going to need more solar. Okay, build a solar company.
Right.
He's just fearless about like, oh, we need this, we need
Right.
that. And then he also, while he is sometimes weird,
Yeah.
I love that he's like, and we should build ray guns and
Yeah.
you know, he's crazy.
Crazy.
We're gonna build flamethrowers.
Yeah.
He just wakes up some days and is like, you know, no one's built like a particle beam accelerator this week. I'm gonna do that.
He's like the real life Tony Stark.
And even back when I was at the interview,
Yeah.
the HR person pitching me showed me the Iron Man suit and said Tony Stark is modeled off Elon.
Really?
Yeah, they have an Iron Man suit. Even then, they had it in their factory, in their missile factory, and they're like, so he's leaned into that. He thinks he's Tony Stark, or maybe Tony Stark does think he's Elon Musk. But yes,
He is in one of the Iron Man movies, the first one with Larry Ellison, and then Robert Downey Jr. meets Elon Musk, and Elon Musk makes a joke about rocket or something.
yeah. So they totally see things.
Okay.
I mean, he sees himself as that guy.
That guy. Okay. By the way, I'm moving to the rapid fire. I haven't given these questions to Ethan. So
No, I have no idea. It's,
yeah, he has no idea. So
it's a sport.
He's that good. Yes, and he likes it. He told me.
I do like it. It's fun.
Okay, so even though these are rapid fire, Ethan, but we can take time if some needs a little bit time, okay?
Yeah.
Which first one will? Favorite Lord of the Rings moment?
I love this question because I love Lord of the Rings so much.
Same.
Oh boy. Wow. You're really okay, you've got me on one. Let me go by movie. So first movie I have to think through it. It's nothing in the early scenes in Hobbiton. I've been to Hobbiton though.
Really?
I've been to the Hobbiton.
I'm jealous.
They do a great job. If you ever get a chance to go to New Zealand,
Yeah.
you would think it's like gonna be super kitschy. They do a brilliant job at Hobbiton in New Zealand.
For the first movie, I am a little disappointed they cut out Tom Bombadil, and in the books he's big.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back.
So, I think probably some of my. So I like big heartfelt drama.
Yeah.
And so I like when Aragorn in the third movie has to go face the ghosts and really own being king and like.
Yeah.
I like that. If we go for funny stuff.
Yeah.
All the times Pippin screws them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where he knocks the bucket down the wall.
Yeah.
You know, and Gandalf is just. Everybody's cringing as it bangs, and then you hear the drums.
Yes.
Drums in the deep. And it's just great. I was foreshadowing earlier.
Yeah.
Like, the foreshadowing on that is just brilliant.
Yeah,
So
no, I love
probably my favorite scene is the part around the bucket falling down the well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to talk about this.
Please, tell me.
So I also love big dramatic moments. I have two favorite. One is when the Nazgul, the dragon rider, comes and says, "No man can kill me." And Eowyn takes her helmet off, says, "I am no man," and sticks a sword to his face.
Right.
I love that so much. I was gonna name my daughter's middle name with Eowyn, and my wife and bunch of family members says no, so I backed off.
You know, interestingly, Tolkien was a Christian.
Yes.
And that supposedly is his Christian allegory of slaying the devil, standing up to the devil. that's the Eowyn Nazgul story, because she's very pure and innocent,
Yeah.
but strong.
Strong, yes.
And the Nazgul is the personification of the devil there.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and then these days, because we are recording this right before election, I don't know when this will go live. Another scene that comes to me is like I feel like so divided. So one scene comes to my mind when Gondor lights the fire, and then Rohan goes and Rohan shall answer. I feel like it should not stop us from helping each other. Sometimes people just very eager to put other people in a bucket of what political party they're affiliated with. But at the end of the day, we are Americans. We are all humans. So we should reach out and help, right? So those are the two favorite moments.
well, that's
for
of
me.
course another, ironically,
Yeah.
another Christian allegory is what does Gandalf say when he leaves them in Helm's Deep?
Yeah.
On the morning of the third day,
Yeah.
right? Which
Yeah.
is totally a resurrection story.
Yeah.
And of course, they're all about to die, and then
Yeah.
here comes the cavalry, like literally. So, but I love the band of brothers feeling.
100%. Yeah.
Because if we're not, in the end, if we're not here for each other,
Yeah. Yeah.
what's the point?
100%. I actually visited the pub where J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis used to hang out.
It's closed now, the Eagle.
closed? Yeah,
It's gone.
it's-
Yeah, the Eagles.
Oh,
I
took
was
my
just
wife.
in Oxford this
Okay.
last year, and it's shut down.
that's
It's not
so
gone,
sad.
but it's closed. I wanted to visit it.
Okay. No, it's lovely. I highly recommend. Hopefully it opens up.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. If you weren't in tech, Ethan, what career would you have pursued?
There's many, but I come from a medical family, and I think medicine.
Medicine.
It would be. I love the Dr. House series, like the solving medical puzzles. I love medicine because it's equally deep to technology.
Yeah.
So many puzzles and challenges, and what's wrong with this person, and do we have the right medicine, and
Yeah.
high stakes, of course.
Yeah.
People's health, people's lives.
That makes sense. What's your go-to productivity hack?
Do the most important thing first in the morning. First, you got to know what's important, what's going to move the needle, what really matters, and then get it done. I had a rule, which is I always tried to earn my pay by noon. I looked at it as if I'm going to earn my day's pay by noon. I'm going to be able to look at Bezos and say, I earned my pay today, and I was done by noon, which gives me the whole afternoon to do what I want.
Right.
And then if I failed in that, meetings or interruptions, I wouldn't let myself go to bed until I earned my pay. And it drives. Productivity isn't a lifelong thing, it's an everyday battle.
I do have to ask you, do you come up with these metaphors? I have to earn my living by the noon.
Yeah,
Like-
I'm a metaphor machine.
Okay, I love it.
I'm well known, among
Do you
friends.
keep a list? I love the previous metaphor. People will pay more for the painkiller than the vitamins.
That one I borrowed, I learned, but I collect them and I also make them up. I also like double metaphors. I used to say, or mixed metaphors. I'd say, I'll burn that bridge when I come to it. I was somewhat combative early in my career, and I
Okay.
did burn a few bridges right when I got to them.
Okay.
So,
All
anyway.
right. If you could instantly learn a new skill, what would that be?
Instantly.
Yeah,
Any skill?
any skill.
God, I wish I could keep rhythm and dance.
Keep rhythm in dance.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm a terrible dancer.
I love to dance, and
Yeah.
and like my wife is like, please don't dance.
Also, I'm terrible at remembering lyrics. I don't know why. I have a generally good memory. I can remember people's names and the context, design, but I'm terrible. Like I have watched, my favorite Broadway play is Hamilton, but I have watched it so many times, I cannot remember a full song, which is like terrible.
Yeah, Hamilton's amazing, and of course, an amazing individual.
Oh, 100%. So we have seen, me and my wife have been multiple times. We are taking our daughter this Christmas for the first time, so she'll get to see it. We have to wait till she's 10 because there's some stuff.
it's
which is
it's a little raw.
a
at
little bit
points.
raw, yes. Favorite music band?
So I want to be careful with this story, but
Okay.
it's not going to be my favorite music band. Probably my all-time. I have a few,
Yeah.
but I recently had someone pushing me to be more open to country,
Okay.
and so I'm trying to learn country music as an
Yeah.
aside. But if we pick my favorite band has probably been Rush.
Rush,
Classic. And then the other one I would put up there that I just love all their top songs is Clearance Crudewater Revival, CCR.
Yeah.
So I'm old school.
No, that's good. That's good. Yeah, you love it. Dead Cap for Cutie, they're from Seattle.
Okay.
That was our wedding song. I will follow you to the dark. I don't know if you follow that.
Oh,
but yeah,
all right.
yeah. Anyway, what's one gadget you cannot live without?
So I'm gonna answer that slightly differently. It's an app. For me, it's not gonna be for everyone. So if it just has to be a gadget, I love my Apple Watch.
Yeah.
But I use an app called All Trails.
Okay.
All Trails has basically every hiking trail in the world. I like to go outside. So like I haven't done it for your house, but I can literally open it and I can pop up a map and it will give me all the hiking trails near here. And I've used it all over the world. I've used it in Switzerland and in Italy and in England and on and on and on. And of course all over the US. And I just don't think we realize, like in the past, if I wanted to find hiking trails here, I'd have to ask someone, or because I'm not from where you live, I'd have to go to, the county, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Whereas now I can just put up an app in my pocket and be on a trail in a few minutes. And so for me, I like to be outside and hike every day as like my refresher and be in the woods. And now I can do it anywhere in the world on the drop of a hat.
Okay, I love it. Favorite leadership principle?
I'm torn. I contributed to the ownership leadership principle, so of course it means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And the story there, if I were to say that was my favorite, I fought to have ownership kept as a leadership principle. It was going to be completely deleted.
Wow.
They thought other things covered it, and I and some other leaders argued, no, it doesn't. And Wilkie told us, well, then if it's so important to you, you write it. And that's how I ended up writing parts of it. So I love ownership, but my other one's bias for action.
That's my
because
favorite one,
ownership is great, but ownership without getting something done, what's that even mean?
Yeah.
And I am a little bit of a cowboy. And so bias for action, I lean into like, let's go, let's figure it out. If we break something, we'll call the AWS engineers and they'll bail me out.
Yeah, no, the bias for action is my favorite because I feel like if you take more shots, you will win more.
Well, I play ice hockey, so Gretzky said you miss 100% of the shots.
Another metaphor, yes.
Yeah, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
So this is another thing, by the way, going all the way back to what causes people stuck. Bonus information. They don't take any risk.
Right.
They don't. They want to be right, and so they're very slow. Sometimes you're better off just go.
Just go.
You can. I'd rather, if I have two engineers in my office, one of them took a shot at something, it didn't work out, one of them did nothing, I'm going to lean into the one who didn't, because
100%.
that person can do better next week. This person is going to do nothing again next week.
Yeah, 100%. The biggest reason that some of my students who were stuck is because of analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Like they'll be like, some of them are like, I don't know what cloud to learn. AWS, Azure, GCP, okay? I'll give them some pointers, look at the jobs around your areas, what your company is adopting, etc., etc. Still, they cannot decide. And I'm like, dude, let me do this. Okay, Azure, he's like, you're an AWS guy. You are asking me to learn Azure? I said, does not matter. Just get started on it.
Yeah, pick something.
Pick something, yeah.
Totally. Get out, since you told me you play D&D, get out your 6-sider.
That's right.
1 and 2, it's AWS. 3 and 4, it's Azure.
Yeah.
At 5, 6, it's GCP. Here we go.
Here we go.
Let fate decide.
Yes.
Get something done.
Okay, last 3 questions, Ethan.
Whoa, I thought it was 5 and we were done.
No.
Let's just go, okay, that's cool.
Okay.
All right. Make them good, though.
Make them good.
If they're not good, I'm just going to make it move on.
Yes. Well, these are making you think. So I think I'm doing pretty well. I thought about these questions. Any person living that you want to go to dinner with. It cannot be wife and it cannot be not living. I know your answer. What is gonna
not
be.
living, you've heard that.
Yes.
Living. Anyone.
Anyone.
I have a couple. Snarky answers. It's a good question. Makes me think. Who would I really, really want to question over dinner? Mm-hmm. I go straight to the tech leaders. There are world political figures.
Yeah.
Which is the toss-up. It would be one of those two for me. I think it might be Musk. I think it might be Musk.
Wow, okay.
He's the most dynamic individual, and I really want to have dinner with him and basically ask him, why do you feel a need to be such a difficult person?
Yeah.
And is there any way I can convince you to spend more of your energy on saving the world and help you with it? Like, I want to take the brain cells you're using tweeting and get you to use them on the great things you're doing. It's a conversation I'd love to have with him. But also, I talked to him 10 years ago. He was a neat guy then.
Yeah.
I'd be curious. I'm very curious if he has any memory of that conversation.
Might he?
Yeah, he's got a good memory, but at the same time, it's a long time ago, and I never worked for him, so I'm curious.
Okay.
So probably, I think Musk. What's the second question?
Second question: which kind of restaurant will you take Musk to?
I would take him to a restaurant in Krakow, Poland called Character. Character is the place I've had the best hamburger I've ever had in my life. Wow. Krakow, Poland actually is, secret tip for you, most of our images of Poland is still based on Lech Walesa and solidarity and breaking free of the Soviets. That's not Poland anymore. It's incredibly modernized, has incredible food. This is a Michelin restaurant. But it's a bar and grill. Okay. And they make a burger, which some people, may not eat meat or whatever, but it's a burger with foie gras on it. Yeah. And it's just unbelievable. Wow. And so, and he seems like, while he'd no doubt enjoy a super fancy meal, I think I want to have burgers and beers. Nothing wrong with that. Musk would be a burger and beer. There's some people I'd try and wine and dine. What's the point?
Yeah. All right, last question, Ethan. If you could have done anything differently, if you can go back 30 years and start your career again, would you have done anything different?
Wow. Would I have done anything different? I'd have been, so I got to come up with a specific point change as opposed to a general change. But while I think about that, I'd have taken a lot more risk. I was very conservative. I was a little bit afraid. I tell people all the time now, like for your audience, look, you already speak English, you work in technology, you're either, in the US or if you're not in the US, you're in a great country or you're in a great job for a great company. That's why you're listening. Yeah. You're going to do fine in life. You're going to be frankly wealthy. You may not be ungodly wealthy, but you'll always be taken care of.
Right.
So stop worrying. Push, but don't be so uptight about it. I was uptight a lot, worried of, am I going to do this? Push, but then chill. I had a chance to leave college to join a startup pre-IPO. My roommate did. He was a millionaire at 25. Wow. I didn't. And I had to do it the hard way.
But then you got all the wisdom, right?
Yeah, but I'd have preferred the million. He's a millionaire at 20. And he's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
We told him he's also a pushover. Yeah. A bunch of us said,
that's what happens when you're a multimillionaire.
Well, he had all these stock options that were doing well. We told him, remember, $1 million in 95, it's a pretty good, it's like 3-4 million now.
Yes.
We told him, we said, you know what, when you hit $1 million, you have to throw a party for us. Yeah. And he's like, wait, you should throw a party for me? And I'm like, yeah, but you have the $1 million, you're throwing a... So he did. Okay. And that was... We had to, of course, engineers are picky. We had to define terms. That was a post-tax million.
Oh my God.
So he was at like $1,700,000, $1,800,000 to where it was a full $1 million, and he threw us a party.
Wow. Okay. All right. Where can people find you, Ethan?
EthanEvans.com is my website, and then on LinkedIn, I'm Ethan Evans VP.
Okay.
So those are the two easiest, best places to find out all about me.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming and doing this podcast. Now we can go enjoy some steak and wine.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for having me here.
Of course, thanks.
And great questions. Good job.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
you get a gold star for asking interesting questions. We talked a long time, and you kept it interesting.
Excellent. Thank you, Ethan.
All right.
All
My
right.
pleasure.